Hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion, the podcast about books, authors, their craft, and more. I'm your host Edith, and joining me from the East Coast on a boat is former educator, sailor, and author Debra Hammett. Deborah, hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion.
Hello, Edith. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for making time for me. And like you said before we started the recording, you are sailing on the east coast of the United States?
Yes, that's right. So right now I am on the east coast of the United States, between Rhode Island and Massachusetts. So
And it's a bit
I
foggy on
left
your
Rhode
end.
A little foggy, yeah. But there's a decent wind and the flat seas. So it's only about a 6-hour sail from Rhode Island to a small island off the coast of Massachusetts. And so excited.
The quiet before the storm.
Yeah. Are we having a storm?
I don't know.
There is a storm. You know, they're starting to predict the Atlantic hurricanes now. So there is a storm forming off the coast of Africa, and you know it could be making its way to the east coast of the United States within the next 10 days. So the media is going to have a really good time in the next 10 days. You know, getting us all nervous about that.
Okay, in case it turns into a tornado or hurricane? Okay, yeah.
It would turn in, if it turns into a hurricane, then, then we have to, take major precautions. And, I have to execute my hurricane plan, which is pretty involved, but I have one.
Yeah, I can imagine. Are you more aware of the weather now that you are living on a sailing boat than before when you lived on an island?
Definitely. Yeah, I check the weather every single day, at least once or twice a day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's necessary, I suppose,
Whether
because
I'm going, whether I'm going anywhere or not, because if I'm at anchor, I want to know how the boat's going to be swinging around the anchorage.
Okay.
And I might have to adjust things depending on how many other boats are close to me and things like that.
And I suppose it was, you write a little bit about, I got an idea a little bit in your book what it was for you to learn about sailing. Although you lived on an island, you didn't know much about sailing. I mean, coming from Austria, which has been a landlocked island for more than 100 years now, I have to say I know nothing about sailing. I mean, we do have our lakes and so on, but I know nothing about it. Although I didn't know much about horses either when I wrote my book, but that's another story for another podcast. But it's more than just about sailing for you. It's also about starting a new life, which you talk about in your book. And I would ask you to give our listeners a little bit of an idea what your book is about. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So, my story is the story of how I went from being an elementary school teacher and a school principal to retiring and then traveling independently and then gaining even more independence by becoming a single-handed sailor. And I had never had any sailing experience, even though I did live on an island. I saw boats every day. I, was aware of the tide, and I was aware of the wind, but I wasn't really a sailor. I would take the ferry boat back and forth to the island for an hour-long ferry ride every time I needed to go someplace. But I was never really thinking about sailing. I would watch the drawbridge go up while I was waiting in my car to cross over on the road, and I would sometimes see the mast of a sailboat go through, but I never actually did any sailing. And then when I was traveling in the Dominican Republic during COVID, I met somebody from Vermont who um, convinced me to go to Vermont. And there I was in a landlocked state. And that's when we started to watch these YouTube sailing videos about people who lived aboard their sailboats and got really interested in the idea of being able to live aboard a sailboat and travel to wherever you wanted to be. And, tropical islands, beautiful clear water, perfect temperatures, all of that seemed idyllic, right? So, um, and we also thought that the challenge of learning something brand new would be really fun in retirement because my career had always been a challenge and didn't really have any challenge after I retired. So that was sort of part of it too. So we ended up buying this sailboat actually on Lake Champlain and learned how to sail it and ended up taking sailing lessons in the Bahamas for a week on a catamaran to get our ASA certifications, the American Sailing Association, which is the credible source of sailing endorsements, for coastal cruisers in the United States. So we did that, and we took those classes in the Bahamas, but we were certified in the United States. And we did some other sailing. We sailed in Tahiti for a month on another catamaran. We were not captains, but we were on the boat, learning more and more. And then eventually I wanted to do more of it on my own. I wanted to be the captain. And during the week, my partner would be working, and I was working online at that point, just doing some teaching online and part time. And I started to single hand the boat during the week on Lake Champlain, and I really loved it. And I loved the independence of it. And I got better and better at it. I could dock the boat independently. I could, do all the maneuvering independently. And my partner got less and less interested in sailing, and I decided to buy him out from the boat. And so I now own the boat, and I equipped the boat with solar panels and what it needed to make the journey south along the East Coast and down to the Bahamas for the winter. So I did that, and then I sailed the boat back up to my home, which is Martha's Vineyard Island. And the book is about that journey and what I learned along the way, mostly the hard way by making lots of crazy mistakes, and about the people I met, and what I discovered about myself and about stereotypes and things like that, while also teaching the basics of sailing. Because I was looking for a way to continue to be a teacher, but not to have a schedule. Having a schedule is a really dangerous thing for a sailor because the weather should determine your decisions, and that should be your first priority. And having to drop the anchor and teach a lesson at a certain time, that sort of thing, put me in some precarious situations enough so that I really had to question whether it was safe for me to keep doing that. And then the other thing too is that I would have to cancel sometimes because of safety. And then I felt like I was letting my students down, and I hated that. So, because they were depending on me.
Yeah,
So
of course they were, absolutely. And the title of your book, Young Salt at 60, also has a subtitle, Becoming Better Than Retired. And you said you
Mhm,
didn't have challenges after your retirement. And
mhm,
I wonder why we tend to push all the things we want to do back and back and back until retirement. I mean,
mhm.
I get it on the one hand, but sometimes it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because, for example, the father of a friend, he died in an accident 1 week before his retirement. So all the
Yeah,
plans he had went up, in
yeah.
flames for him
Mm.
and his family. So do you regret in a way that you haven't started things earlier or not at all?
Oh, not at all. I think I retired pretty young.
Mm,
So, I retired before I was 60.
mm,
So, and I had taught school for 32 years. I was in public education. So, I felt like I had, you know, had my career. I was really tired of the educational system in the United States. And, there were a lot of politics involved.
mm,
And I had gotten my kids through college. And
mm.
in the United States, paying for university is a big deal. It's very
Yeah,
difficult. And I had two daughters who went to private schools in Boston, and I managed to get them
yeah,
through
yeah.
college. And at that point, financially, I was able to retire, but I still wanted to do something. And so I was teaching online,
Mhm,
and that was very rewarding. I really enjoyed that. But like I said, having a schedule was difficult. And then so I stopped doing it. And then I had no sense of purpose. I found myself only sailing. And that made me feel very disconnected. It made me feel very selfish, and it made me, feel like I needed to have some sort of a purpose, something bigger than myself. And,
mhm,
um, so I thought, "Huh, how can I use my teaching skills without having to have a schedule?" So, I thought about curriculum design, but I have had so many years of working on curriculum and so many meetings and all of that, that it really didn't turn me on at all. Kind of been there, done that, didn't really
yeah,
wanna do it anymore. And then I thought, well, I could use my teaching skills to teach other people what I've learned about sailing.
mhm,
Because as I was learning about sailing myself,
mhm,
I um, would be given a lot of new vocabulary all at the same time by instructors
mm,
who hadn't necessarily been teachers. Having been an elementary school teacher, I know how to simplify terminology. I know how to simplify directions, because if I can do it for 8-year-olds, then I can certainly do it for novice sailor adults, right? So I wanted to tell my story so that retired people might be inspired to learn something
mm,
new at
yeah,
that age, and at the same time, be able to educate the beginning
mm,
sailor about the basics they need to survive on a
and
sailboat.
yeah, understandable, and maybe also to avoid the mistakes you made?
Yeah, to avoid the mistakes I made, but also, um, but also to understand that making those mistakes is part of the process.
Mm, mhm,
And facing the fear is
mhm,
something that you really can't avoid. There's no such
mm,
thing as waiting until you know everything that's going to happen and you have a solution for everything
yeah,
before you do it.
yeah,
Because with sailing and with life in general, curveballs happen and we don't get to
Yeah.
know the answer before the problem presents itself. The problem presents itself, and we need to be able to assess the situation
Mm,
and, come up
mm,
with a reasonable solution. And that means being creative and being able to really be present in the moment and not
mm,
panic. And for me, emotionally, it's very difficult for me to not panic
mm.
when something crazy and unexpected is happening.
Yeah.
And it's critical because I have to have the wherewithal to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So, it really puts me to the test that way, and that's the challenge that I need in my life.
Mm,
So
yeah.
the sailing part of it is great, and writing the book, frankly, writing and speaking and, grammar. My dad was a high school English teacher, and I was an English teacher for so long that I really feel like the writing part of it was the easiest thing I have ever done. Seriously,
Yeah.
so easy.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can imagine. Yeah. Well, of course, with that background, I can understand that. Absolutely. And may I ask, you don't have to answer that question, of course, but what about the physical challenge of being on this boat, being the captain, weathering all the storms, or the challenges being out on the ocean?
Yeah. Well, it's very scary sometimes.
Yeah.
And if it's dark and I can't see anything and I'm all by myself and the waves are tossing the boat around and I've taken all the precautions I can possibly take. I double up on everything. My theory is if there's only one of me, then I have to have at least two backup plans because I don't have an extra set of hands. So I have to have some sort of mechanical backup in place of the extra set of hands. So for example, when I tie my little boat, my dinghy, to my big boat, I tie two lines. And my friends all laugh at me. They think that's too much. But I don't have somebody to help me go and find that boat if it comes loose from my boat. I, it just so I can't afford to take the risks that a lot of captains with crew are able to take. I don't leave the cockpit, for example, when I'm underway. I have all the lines coming back into the cockpit. So I do everything mechanically from the safety of the cockpit. And when it's rough seas, I am attached to the boat. I'm tethered to the boat with a harness.
Mm. Okay.
So,
Oh, okay. I see.
because if
Precautions.
I fall overboard, nobody can come and get me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you have to take precautions and think of
Yeah.
what could might happen. Yeah, understandable. And what do you answer people who say, "Oh, okay, she wants to be on the water and she wants to be on a boat. So couldn't she have just bought a houseboat somewhere, let's say Bath, on the canal, and be done with it?"
Sure, but then I would have the same view all the time, and I would have the same climate all the time. And I want to be able to be in the perfect climate all the time. And I like the adventure of
Okay.
travel,
Yeah.
and I love exploring different towns and different harbors. I love looking at different boats and different
Hmm.
scenery.
Hmm.
Just, in the past week, I was able to explore about 5 different towns that I had never been to in New England.
Yeah. Ah,
And,
okay.
yeah, so that's kinda cool. And I'm going to an island today that I've never been to before, even though it's very close to the island where I lived for 35 years.
Yeah. And since we were talking about this challenge after retiring, what would you say to people? Again, it's me playing the devil's advocate here, because I have
Sure.
heard these things before when they say, oh, I'm too old to learn something new, and one shouldn't grow old.
Well, they don't want to. So the way I look at that is when people say, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, it's because they don't want to. They don't want to give up their nice, cozy blanket and their TV and their favorite teacup and their, whatever it is that makes them feel rooted. And that's okay, but I think that longevity happens for people who are continuously growing and changing and challenging themselves. So by nature of the fact that I'm doing something that requires physical strength and agility, balance, and upper body strength to bring in the sails and all that stuff, I have to stay fit, and then I'm constantly learning, and I think that helps me stay mentally fit. So I um I think that I feel younger doing this than I would if I had retired and just stayed in my house on Martha's Vineyard, maybe working more on some of the volunteer committees that I was a part of. But I had already been on all those volunteer committees. I had already done most of what I wanted to do in that community. But a lot of people are afraid to leave their community. They're afraid to leave all their friends and family and their support system. So, and venture into a new geographical area, whether it be travel or, a lot of Americans are leaving the country and becoming expats. And, financially, it makes a lot of sense for a retired American to be able to take those, American dollars and go and live in some other country and live really well. So a lot of people are doing that, but it takes a huge amount of risk and courage, and they're afraid they're not going to know the language, and they're afraid they, aren't going to have this and that and the other thing that they are accustomed to having. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I only own one home now, and that is in the Dominican Republic. I I don't own a house in America anymore. I bought a house on the beach in the Dominican Republic because I can't afford a house on the beach in America anymore. So, yeah.
Maybe that's not the worst thing at the moment. Just saying.
No, no, I don't think no, it's definitely not the worst thing, but it's just a choice that
Yeah.
I made, that I
Yeah.
want to be, if I'm going to be in any one spot, I want it to be where I can be on the water, where I can walk out the door and go for a swim, and where it's not crowded and I don't have to drive in traffic and deal with the things that Americans have to deal with. So, yeah.
Yeah, true. Maybe not go too far north at the moment. Greenland,
Maybe
maybe
not
not
go to.
Greenland or
Yeah.
something at the moment as an
Yeah,
American.
well, I don't like the cold, so that's not gonna work. Yeah, I don't
Just
like the
saying,
I don't like the cold. Yeah,
which I can
so,
understand.
yeah. Actually, in the Dominican Republic, there are very few Americans in the community where I live. There are
Oh,
quite a few people from Germany, though. A lot of
oh
German
well,
expats
yeah,
and,
they are everywhere. Yeah, the
yep, and
Germans are
French.
everywhere.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, no. So sorry, German friends, but you are, you are. I mean, they are what 90 million Germans,
Uh-huh.
something like that. And
Yeah.
I mean, we are about 9 million Austrians, so you won't find us everywhere. The Germans, yes, the
Although I have
Austrians.
met Austrians, I've
Yeah,
met Austrians
yeah,
in my community in the
yeah,
Dominican Republic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also retired?
Austrian sailors,
Ah,
actually.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are sailors like I said, those who probably started on the lakes here in Austria and then thought, oh, why not go in the ocean and take it further? Who are passionate
Yeah.
about this? Absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, more than 100 years ago, we did have a harbor and we did have a marine, a
There you go.
navy. More than 100 years ago,
Yeah.
it's a long time ago. And Deborah, may I
Yeah.
ask? In the description also of your book, it says it is also about confronting your own biases. What would you say were
Mm,
those biases,
mm,
and what did you have to confront, or
mhm,
what
mm.
point of
Well,
views did you
okay.
change?
Yeah. Well, in America right now, there is a serious division between conservative politics and progressive politics. And it's also regional. So in the North, in New England on the East Coast, it is way more progressive politically than it is in the southern part of the United States, in Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas. Um, so as I went farther south, I was um, I was meeting very, very conservative people, and it was just interesting. It was interesting um, for me to look at my own biases in terms of what I expected from people. I I think as I went farther south, I found that people were uh, maybe a little bit biased about the fact that I was a woman captain alone on a boat. So there was some gender bias happening. And then other times I perceived that there would be gender bias and there actually wasn't any. So, in other words, sometimes I would think that, the men would be treating me unfairly because of their bias. But the opposite was true. They had tremendous respect for me and were able to, show me things and were more than willing to help me in a way that wasn't condescending, and I learned a lot. And then there were other times when my own biases, for example, I had a situation where somebody actually saved my life. And it was somebody who was living on a derelict boat in a marina. The boat looked like it hadn't moved in probably 10 years. And it was filthy and in really bad shape. And the kid that lived on the boat had tattoos everywhere, all over his face, no teeth, and looked like a drug addict. And I was concerned because I needed to leave my boat alone there at that marina for a few days, and I was concerned that my boat would not be safe, that I would be robbed. And but I got back to the boat after going away for a few days. The boat was fine, and I was leaving the marina and nobody was around. and I wanted to take advantage of a weather window, and I was leaving the marina, and because I was in a hurry, I accidentally fell into the water in a very swift current, couldn't get back out of the water in any way. There was no way to get back up on the dock. There was no way to get back up on my boat because I wasn't strong enough to be swimming against the current. And I was screaming, and this particular person came out of his boat, jumped onto my boat, grabbed a line, and threw me the line in the water and dragged me over to where I could climb onto my boat. And if he hadn't have done that, I really don't know what would have happened. But because I was injured from the fall, and I didn't have the strength to fight the current. So, just like, don't judge a book by the cover, not taking things, not, and also to always believe the best in people. Um, yeah. Be safe, try to take precautions, but always think the best. So,
Yeah. It's interesting what you just said about how the man more or less surprised you in the attitude towards you, more open than you had expected. Do you think that women sometimes feel a little bit not just challenged, but afraid of someone like you, who's her own woman, who does what you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some of that. There are a lot of women who don't take a lot of risks, and they haven't achieved the things that I have achieved because I've been taking risks, because I've been making mistakes. Frankly, I mean, I don't know how to do it any more than anybody else knows how to do it. I'm not smarter, nothing like that. But maybe I'm crazier because I actually do it, but I will actually do it, and I will actually make the mistakes and suffer the consequences, but definitely learn from those mistakes and put myself out there and go all in. So yeah, I think there are some women who wish they could do that, but for whatever reason, they can't. And some, and I mean, I had that dynamic with women when I went from being a school teacher to being a school principal, because there were a lot of women who claimed to know how to run the school, but they would never be able to be the principal, to get the job, to do what it took to get the job, and then also to be able to do what it took to do the job. It's much easier to stand on the sidelines and be critical.
Yes, be critical and be helpful with good advice.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. And then offended if the good advice isn't taken.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes. I'm honest. I would never be able to do the job you did as a principal or something like that. I also wouldn't be interested, to be honest.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. A lot of people say she should do this, she should do that, she should do the other thing, but I wouldn't want that job.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm honest. I'm not saying that. I mean, what people should do, because I don't know what's involved behind the scenes, which you are not aware of. As someone who works in this field, I'm not aware of everything that's going on behind the scenes with our principals. I would never say I would do it like this or that. I'm just scared I don't have to.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good.
No.
Yeah, there's a range of teachers,
I know.
Yeah.
They are everywhere.
Yeah.
I know. That's it. They do exist indeed.
But
Yeah.
I I don't know. I loved teaching,
Mm.
and I probably should have never left teaching to be a principal because I really loved the teaching. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
I thought I could teach teachers. I thought I could teach teachers, but teachers are harder to teach
they
than children.
they are the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
know
was a
what you
very
mean. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is very rewarding
mhm,
teaching children, absolutely. It's also very
mhm,
rewarding teaching adults. That's also what I did before I
mhm,
came into the regular school system, so to speak.
uh-huh.
Um, did your sailing adventure give you a new appreciation of nature and the force of nature since you are out there on your own on a boat and having to tackle all
Mhm.
this uh dangers? Do you
Yeah.
look at it with a new eye at the force of nature and what nature is capable of doing?
Oh, yeah. Water is the most powerful force there is in nature. And, it shapes rock. It it has incredible power. And just the power of the waves and the the beauty of the waves, and the water never looks the same to me on 2 different days. I mean, it's just even during the course of one day, even during the course of this morning, the water has changed in its appearance. It was flat calm in the anchorage where I woke up. Now the sea is rolling a little bit. We've got about 1.5 to 2 foot waves out here, and it's gray. The sky is gray. The water is always changing color. It's magnificent, really. And, the light on the land and the way the water sparkles and the way the sea is illuminated by the moonlight, it's just captivating to me all day, every day. It's never boring. Um, I just I just love it. And I have to respect
Yeah,
that the water is going to win over
yeah,
me. It's much
yeah.
stronger than I am. I am very insignificant up against a 3-foot wave. I am completely powerless,
Yeah, yeah, I can
you
imagine.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely understand it. It's a little bit, only a little bit similar to what people experience who live in the Alps here in Austria or Switzerland, for example. The sudden change of weather, and you have to take that in account when you go out there and do your thing, do sports and
Mhm.
something like that,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
and be aware of that, and don't make mistakes in underestimating nature as a
Yes.
force.
Yes. I mean, I always err on the side of caution, but even though I do that as a standard practice, there are many, many sailors who have many stories to tell of how there was weather that was not predicted. It was a lot worse than predicted. Even like yesterday, I was out and the wind was predicted to be up to 10 knots and it was 20 knots. So it was a big difference. It wasn't dangerous, but it was a big difference. And it meant that I needed to do some things that I wasn't expecting to have to do,
Mm. Mhm.
to
Yeah,
trim the sail, to reef the
yeah,
sails,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. And may I ask, Deborah, since you're out there on the ocean, and what about meeting the animal kingdom? Were there any breathtaking
Oh, yeah.
meetings?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't ever seem to have my camera in the right at the right time. But, on my way up here from the Bahamas, a few months ago, there was a dolphin just playing alongside the boat, and I could see, I could just see the dolphin so clearly. I could see the speckles on its skin, and he was a small one, a baby, and just having a good time, and curious about the size of the boat, and it was wonderful. And sometimes in the Bahamas, the water is so clear, you can see blades of grass, 15, 20 feet down in an anchorage. And you can also see starfish, the size of a dinner plate, big orange starfish on the bottom, and sea turtles, maybe 1 meter in diameter, swimming under the boat. And it's amazing. And stingrays, big stingrays, at least a meter with their long tails, and lots of beautiful, beautiful fish and sharks, a lot of sharks. And respecting the sharks too. And a lot of boaters who don't have a lot of experience feed the sharks their dinner scraps, or if they catch fish, they clean the fish and they throw the scraps overboard in the anchorage, which is understandable because you don't want to have smelly garbage on your boat. But by doing that, they are attracting the sharks. By doing that, they are attracting the sharks, and they are, making a dangerous situation for people who would be swimming off the transom of their boats. Yeah. So, excuse me for 1 second.
Yeah.
This is okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Sorry.
No, good. Go on.
I have an alarm on my chart plotter that beeps when there's another boat nearby. It's not that close, but
Okay.
it's just beeping to tell me what I already know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. See, that's why I prefer to swim in a swimming pool. No, seriously. No, seriously. Usually I ask authors about their advice about writing, but may I ask you for your advice regarding people who also are going to retire very soon or are already retired and want to become something new or have a lifestyle change? What would be your advice for them?
My advice would be, okay, so if you're retiring and you're, say, 65 years old, if you were to approach the rest of your life with the same mindset you had when you were 35 years old, and you'd be looking forward 30 years. When you're 35 and you're saying, okay, I've got 30 more years of my life, of my career. What do I want to do with it? If you approach your years from 65 to 95 with that same ambition, then you can do whatever you want, because the potential of living for another 30 years after retirement is very possible, right? So so a lot of us can do that, especially if we stay healthy and with the medical advances and everything. So what is it that you want to do with that time? It should be more than just relax after having finished. And I think a lot of people look at retirement as a finish rather than a beginning. So to set goals in terms of what you want to achieve is something that I think that retired people should do. Because if you have another 30 years of your life and you don't have a goal, that's just sad. That's just sad. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be now? You can be something different, especially for women. I mean, most women have the child rearing years where they are a mom.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the being a mom defines a woman for a period of life. And a lot of women have a before motherhood career, a during motherhood career, and an after motherhood career. And so I think for women, it might actually be easier to have an after retirement, um, the idea of being somebody new and different after retirement, because they have been able to change through phases. Um, but I think it might be harder for men because men tend to, have a career and then that's their career for the whole time through.
Yeah, probably for some of them, but let's be honest here. How many men really do have a so-called career? I mean, seriously, if you work in an office, not everyone has a career.
Yeah. Well, the careers are becoming outdated, but
Yeah.
people who are in the retirement years now, most of the people who are retiring now are people who did choose a career and stay in that career
Yeah.
for their working years.
Yeah.
So, like I did, for example, I was
Mm.
in public education for over 3 decades. There are a lot
Mm.
of people that my sister was in banking for over 3
Mm.
decades. My brother was in the military for over 3
Mm.
decades,
Mm.
so it's kind of, but that's no longer as much of a thing. People are in their career. People have 5 or 6 careers during the course of their working years
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that people who are retiring now need more motivation to go and do something new and different because they haven't experienced as much change in their in changing careers. They haven't
Mm.
changed careers as fluidly as people who are in their careers now.
It's
Does that make sense?
interesting. Yeah, it does, and it's an interesting point. I have never thought about it like that. So basically, they never had to set themselves up for new challenges because usually, like you said, they stayed in one career. They sometimes even stayed with one company. They never
Or
changed
one job? Yeah,
company. Yeah,
I
exactly.
had teachers who stayed in the same grade in the same school. They graduated from
Yeah,
university. They got a job teaching 4th grade. They taught 4th grade in that same
yeah,
school, in the same town where they had always lived, where they
yeah,
grew up.
yeah.
They even were students in that school, and
Yes.
now they're teachers in that school. They stayed their whole career
Yeah,
in that school,
yeah.
and then they retire. And, I mean, to change something dramatically after that would be very, very difficult. So
Yeah.
the idea of change and flexibility in general in life just makes
Mm.
you more, I don't know, more efficient, more effective, more balanced, more tolerant. The more
Yeah.
change we can experience, the better.
I absolutely agree. And isn't change also an indicator of life? I mean, stand still or standing still is death, whereas life does change.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
it's nature.
Right. So becoming adaptable is a goal.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But despite all that, Deborah, I have one more question. Is there anything you regret looking back?
Anything I regret looking back? Oh gosh, so many different things. uh, um, yeah, I think I regret not having learned how to sail sooner.
Mm, mm,
I didn't take the time
mm,
to challenge myself with a recreational
mm,
activity
mm,
while I was working and raising my children.
mm,
I ran. I was a runner,
mm,
and I continue to run. I run, about 5 miles a day, and I enjoy doing that. It's hard to find places to run and the time to run,
yeah.
particularly if I'm offshore for, a few days, then of
Mhm,
course I can't
mhm,
run.
mhm, mhm,
But I did that because it was fast. I didn't need to have, a tennis partner and a court time, and I didn't need to have any equipment. I could do it anywhere. I could say, "Hey, I'm gonna go for a run for half an hour and then I'll be back." And, but sailing would have required a lot more
mhm.
time, a lot more
Yeah.
money, a lot more of an investment.
Mhm,
And I regret not having invested in a hobby,
mhm,
you know,
mhm,
when my kids were growing up.
mhm. Yeah, I do understand
Didn't
that.
have
Yeah, maybe.
time.
Yeah, sometimes people feel as if they have no time for a hobby, don't they? Real
But
life.
I didn't make time
Yeah.
is
Okay.
the bottom line, you
Okay.
know? So my excuse is that I didn't have time, but the reality is that
Okay.
I I didn't make time.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Deborah, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know? What other
um,
message would you like to put out there?
life is messy and imperfect, and if you wait until you have all of the answers before you try to solve the problem, you're going to be you're going to miss out on all of the exciting things and all of the exciting learning that you can do and the exciting achievements that you can have.
Mm. Mm, yeah.
So you have to embrace the idea of making mistakes.
Mm. Yeah. Yep. Sounds good.
And you can basically do anything you want to do. If you embrace the idea of making mistakes, then there's really nothing you can't do.
Mm. Yeah. Sure. One last question before I let you go, because I was seeing that again and again on short videos. You do not have a boat cat, do you?
No, I don't have a boat cat. have
Just
you
asking.
have you spoken to Oliver Widger?
No, no.
No. Oh, Oliver Widger is famous on Instagram. He sailed single-handed from Oregon to Hawaii, and he has a cat. His cat is named Phoenix. It's sailing with Phoenix. Yeah.
Okay.
Um. Uh. No, I do not have an animal on board. No, I do not.
Okay. Just asking because we live under the paw, so that's why I asked.
No, I don't. A
Okay.
lot of people have pets and kids, and I see dog owners taking their dogs to shore to go for a walk in the morning and in their little dinghy boats. And no, I'm happy I don't have to do that.
Yeah, makes life
I've
easier.
got enough to manage. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I've got enough to
absolutely.
manage.
Understandable, absolutely understandable. Deborah, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's absolutely fascinating.
I have really appreciated being on your show. Thank you
Uh,
for having me.
Thanks for making time for me. Please wait for me in the green room. I will be with you shortly.
Okay, I will.
Dear listeners, I do hope you enjoyed this episode as much as my guest and I did. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I do hope you will tune in for another episode. Until next time.